My father was born in the Philippines in 1941. His father was killed by the Japanese before he was 1 year old. He was raised by his mom and his grandmother, and after about a year of college, where my uncle tells me that my dad wasn't really going to class, his mom basically pulled him home and told him he was going to go enlist in the United States Navy. They lined them all up, and an American came in and said, okay, who wants to join the U.S. Navy and who wants to join the U.S. Coast Guard? And all my dad and the fellow recruits all started talking in Tagalog, you know, what is the U.S. Coast Guard? Has anybody heard of the U.S. Coast Guard? So nobody moved. The recruiter basically said, okay, everybody on this side of the room is going to be in the U.S. Navy, everybody on this side of the room is going to be in the U.S. Coast Guard, and my dad ended up in the U.S. Coast Guard. The main thing I took away from my father was a real sense of gratitude for, you know, the opportunities that America provided. My older brother kind of paved the path for me ending up at the Air Force Academy with his decision to go to West Point. I mean, I think I was part of the Star Trek Captain Kirk, space being, you know, the final frontier generation. So I think there was definitely an allure for me, but it was not this deep passion for flying. Maybe it was a deep passion for about science and space and aviation in general. When I was there, my advisor told me it's going to be much easier for you to make the transition later if you want to go be an engineer than the opposite. If you go be an engineer, this is really your only shot to go fly. So I took his advice and went to navigator training at Mayfair Air Force Base in Sacramento. So the Air Force Academy, of course, is the youngest academy. As soon as you arrive and you see the chapel with the steel and aluminum and the glass, you do get an immediate sense that it's kind of very, very a forward-looking place. For me, that was the environment I was seeking. I was going through F-111 fighter training at Mountain Home Air Force Base. And of course, you start out with a lot of academics, then you end up in a lot of flight simulators, and you know, by the time you get up in the air, you're pretty much ready for the basic tasks. Me and Second Lieutenant Matt Young, who's still a good friend of mine, the two of us are walking out to this airplane and really pretty excited. It's like the first time Dad gives you the keys, literally like just teenagers. And it is such an awesome machine. And we were like giddy little kids having our first sortie together as students. I'm from the Northeast, and I had the opportunity to go fly the F-111 at Plattsburgh Air Force Base. And the mission there was nuclear alert. You go through all the training where, you know, they ask you very, very pointed questions on your willingness to employ a nuclear weapon if you're ever asked to do so. And it does take some soul searching to think about the impact on humanity of that. I did think it played an important role during the Cold War of, you know, really keeping superpowers from ever thinking about getting engaged in war because of the strength that both sides projected. So I've actually spent about 8 years of my military career in the United Kingdom, a flying tour at RAF Upper Heyford and 2 tours at RAF Lakenheath. So I was at RAF Lakenheath in 2011 when Operation Odyssey Dawn kicked off, and I got a call, as I was the commander of the base, that the president had decided we were going to go back into Libya. The squadron commander was going to be in the lead jet, and then just as the aircraft get ready to take off, the lead aircraft has a maintenance problem. He falls out, and the number 3 gets to go in and lead the big day. You know, within a couple of days, you know, it looked like the Gaddafi loyalists were going to probably roll right through Benghazi, and there was going to be, you know, some real loss of civilian life. And within a couple of days of us being overhead, we really changed that dynamic, and I think we saved the city of Benghazi. Most of my time I flew the F-15E Strike Eagle, which was, I think, a real workhorse. In June of 2014, I was selected to go command a unit in the Middle East. About a month after I took command of the unit, we would kick off Operation Inherent Resolve, and we'd go back to doing combat sorties in Iraq.
We are leading a comprehensive international campaign to crush ISIS' claim of invincibility.
And then in September 2014, we would do our very first combat sorties into Syria. As an operational commander, I would be expected to not only lead that organization, but fly to understand the challenges and hurdles that exist in the airspace so that I could report to my boss, who's the commander of AFCENT and the headquarters staff, how the air war is actually being executed and what some of the challenges are, what some of the risks are, and make sure that those are all addressed. And so the expectation is, you lead from the front, and I am providing personal account to how the air war was actually being executed. Throughout my entire career, obviously you've had to be witness to and deal with losing very young people in their lives and seeing the impact on families. It was 1992. I was 4 years out of the academy. I was flying F-111s in the UK when I first had to experience that. So we had an F-111 that had an engine problem. It was coming back to land at RAF Upper Hayford, and it didn't make it, and we lost the pilot and the Wizzo. Yeah, unfortunately, I can give you a number of incidents like that. I worked for President Bush from 2003 to 2006. So I was hired as the military aide to the president, which is a team of military officers that basically were kind of the quarterback for all the military support that's provided directly to the president. And then one of those roles includes carrying the nuclear football, or the president's emergency satchel is what it's called. That's what we're probably most known for doing. It afforded some amazing opportunities to be witness to history, to be witness to the office of the president, and also the man, the individual and his family. I had the privilege, to go with the president to Walter Reed a number of times and be a part of small little private ceremonies where the president presented Purple Hearts to folks that had literally just come in from the battlefield. Those are very, very personal moments. Observing the president's compassion and is, it's something that impacts you. Yeah, you don't forget. When I was working for President Bush, this was just after Hurricane Katrina and then Hurricane Rita. I was flying with the president from Austin, Texas to Randolph Air Force Base in San Antonio. And he's looking out the window and he says to me, he says, "Hey, what's that lake out the right side of the helicopter?" So I'm wearing a headset and I'm able to talk to the crew up front. So I said, "Hey guys, the president wants to know what's the lake off to the right." Well, I'm sitting next to a young Marine who has a little communication table, and he hears also what I just asked. And he starts ruffling some papers. And the president sees that, and the president says, "Hey, hand me that." And so I see out of the corner of my eye that the young Marine has a Hertz Rent-A-Car map that he has opened up. And I see it start to get passed back to the president. And of course, the entire helicopter starts laughing. The president starts making fun of us. So this is how we're finding San Antonio today. I was the U.S. Defense Attaché in the American Embassy in London during the time that the first soldier ride was conducted. Meeting the people, the veterans, spending time sweating it out together and helping each other, and then obviously watching the two countries come together. I mean, so many different ways that people connect. The love of cycling, the love of service, the fact that they're wounded veterans, really see how quickly they just come together was really probably the most rewarding part. I heard a lot of stories about people when they first leave the military, they take a job. A year later, they find they're taking another job a year later. I mean, there's a high turnover rate, I think, statistically, among people that are leaving the military. I've been fortunate, and I found a really nice fit working for Amazon. Part of that is, what am I good at, and then what am I passionate about, and understanding the overlap. I actually would love to go be a major league pitcher, but that's not likely to happen. So it's kind of finding that overlap between what you're good at and what you're passionate about. I found a lot of similarities between the Amazon culture and the military culture. It's a place that believes in working hard, having fun, making history. Some of the most meaningful things for me have been when young airmen or their families share with me how often unknowingly I have impacted their lives. So as a commander, you have a lot of people that you're responsible for. You're out in the public often. You make decisions on a daily basis, and you don't necessarily know, the impact that you're having on people's lives. But when people take the time, often privately later, to say, hey, you don't know this, you've never met me, but on this day, you said this, you did that. Those are the things that are really, as a commander, keep you going when the days are long.